Hey guys, it's Ty here with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily, and I want to talk about doing more than you have to when you're training your dog. So I remember back to my first dog. Her name was Heidi. She was a really cool dog. If any of you know my story, it took me years and years and years of begging to get a dog. My parents weren't too into dogs, and my mom was even afraid of dogs, and they didn't want the mess. They didn't want to deal with everything that comes with a dog, right? And so I begged and begged until I was 14 years old, and along came Heidi, and at this time we had moved to a house with property, an acre, and so they finally gave in and said, yeah, we could get a dog. So Heidi came to live with us, and it was great. And it was around this time that I was able to start my apprenticeship working for a local dog trainer in Northern California, where I'm from. And so I got really, really into dog training as this 14-year-old kid, and was just addicted to how cool it was to work together as a team, to get my dog to listen to me, to have this bond with an animal, and I thought it was amazing. And so as I was learning training, I was so gung-ho about it that I would do all these just kind of crazy things in training. Like, for no reason, I would work on a sit stay when on a picnic table at a park. There's no reason for a dog to get up on a park and sit, or a park table, picnic table. But I would work on my dog doing a sit stay for 5 minutes on a table. When it would rain, we'd work on downstays and puddles. We would do like off-leash healing around all these crazy and weird distractions and things like that. We would just do all these things that weren't very real life. It's not like I ever needed her to do a sit-stay on top of a table. It's not like I ever, needed her to do a downstay in a puddle or anything like that. But I just went way further than was necessary. Number one, because I was having fun, but number two, because I really wanted a well-balanced dog. Now, as I grew with Honey, Honey's my current dog. As I grew with Heidi, there was things that I started to see how awesome this training translated over to in the real world. Like, I remember one time, I don't even remember how this happened, but I was downtown. This is a little town called Tracy. I was downtown Tracy with my dog. I don't even remember how I got there. Maybe I took her to the vet. I don't even remember. But I was in downtown Tracy, which is a little town, and found myself needing to go call my parents to get a ride to come pick me up. We lived about 15 minutes outside of town. And in those days, we kids didn't have cell phones, and I don't even think cell phones existed. But so that meant going into a gas station to use the payphone inside. Well, I couldn't bring Heidi in. They didn't allow dogs in. So I worked, I asked her to do a downstay, put her outside of the store, and I walked in, made my call, came back out, and she was still there. And I could think of, a dozen other things that, as I did these weird things, it then translated over to real world training. And it helped me realize at the time, and to this day I still realize it, that if in training we do things that are sometimes weird, or we go above what the dog is ever really going to have to do, or make it more difficult or make it more challenging than what they'll ever encounter in real life, then real life starts to get a little bit easier. In fact, you might even compare it to, I think a lot of competitive runners will wear a weighted vest, right? Because the idea is, if I'm training with an extra 20 pounds and I make it harder on myself in training, when it actually comes time to run the race and I don't have that weighted vest on, I'm going to go faster. It's going to be easier. It's going to be, so if I make it so much harder in training, the actual real world stuff gets a little bit easier. And so to this day, 20 some odd years later, I still encourage my clients to do that. It's hard to, people get busy in their lives, and the idea of setting up some, newfangled type training scenario where you're going to put your dog in a downstay and you're going to walk around a corner and set up cameras to make sure the dog doesn't leave, or you're going to heel, with dogs off leash in and around heavy distractions. I mean, setting these things up takes time, but oftentimes it's so much better than the alternative, which is where, you go into the real world and the dog's not performing at a level that you're hoping for. So that's my advice. Ask more out of your dog in training so that the real world gets a little bit easier.